Alright, so I'm doing a draft for Alter Reality Games here, and I'm going to do something a little interesting. I'm going to try and draft the mill deck in the set. Other cards that I could have picked would be the Priest here. It's a very good card for this deck's strategy, but I really wanted to make sure I got the Curse. In this pack, there's really not too much that this particular archetype needs. So I went and picked the most powerful card, just in case if the plan fell through. It's a little odd to take the Curse and then see if you could do a backup plan, but Banshee's a really strong card. I ended up picking it. I guess the best card for the deck would have been Dissipate, but still unimpressive, so I take the Banshee. So this next pick, I see a couple removal spells, basically Bonds of Faith and Claustrophobia. I think I decided with Bonds of Faith just because it's a little lower on the curve. Obviously, it's not that good for hitting humans, which is relevant, but Claustrophobia is a little mana intensive, being double blue, and it costs a little more, so I think I picked Bonds of Faith. Yeah, here I see Selhoff Occultist, which just seems like a really high pick for most people. That card in this deck's extremely good. I'll talk a little more. Here I see a Doom Traveler. That guy goes really well with the Occultist. Basically what it does well is it slows down your opponent. Once it dies first, it gives you a spirit that can block this flying. So with the Occultist, if you have multiple Occultists and those Doom Travelers, it makes it really hard for your opponent to attack you without getting milled too many cards. So yeah, the Occultist is nice. It's just 3 mana, 2/3, so it blocks really well. Makes it hard for your opponent to attack you, and then late in the game, if you get multiples, it's really hard for them to attack profitably. Now that I have a little time here, I might as well talk about the strategy I'm doing. Well, here's the pack. The two cards here would be Sensory Deprivation or Fortress Crab. Sensory Deprivation isn't the best removal spell, but in this deck where you're never really attacking, you're just on the defense the whole time, it's pretty good. But Fortress Crab is a 1/6 that's really hard to kill, so I take the Fortress Crab. Here I see Curse of the Tome, best card, obviously. Doom Traveler is the only card that really fits the deck. Frightful Delve, that counterspell that counters something unless they pay 1. I've never really played with it, but it doesn't seem the best. One of the reasons why this deck, I feel, does so well is it plays a really low curve and a couple cards with flashback. So the Werewolf strategy doesn't do too well against it, because if they ever flip a Werewolf, it's not very hard for this deck just to play 2 of its 1-drops or flash something back and just reset the board back to their old state. So the Werewolves are usually just overcosted creatures against me. Yeah. This pack doesn't really have anything too great. Maybe it would have been better to hate the Flail, but I picked the Curiosity. It's not the best card in this deck because you're never really able to attack. Just not a good idea. You're always on the defense just trying to mill them out. This pack, I just hate a Naturalize because most of my removal is in the form of enchantments, and I obviously have those curses, so their enchantment removal is very good, so I just try to limit the amount of Naturalizes that can come in with me by defensively drafting them. Now this pick, I could have picked the counterspell, but I picked the Bitterheart Witch. I'm not too upset about this pick, but I ended up playing that card, and I think that was a mistake. I never actually got to cast it, and sometimes the black mana kind of hurt me. I always wanted it to be another blue mana source, so yeah, picking the card I don't think is the worst. It was more of an experiment, but playing with it was definitely wrong. I just wanted to see how the Witch would work, and I never even got to cast it, so it doesn't seem like it's the right idea. This pack, I just hate a Riot Devil. I guess the Altar is a good card, but Devil could hurt me the most. Now here I wheel a Cellar Door. That card's not the best ever, but in this deck it's actually pretty viable. I never really play more than 1. 3 to activate's pretty pricey, but when you do get a zombie token out of it, it's a very good. Milling your opponent slowly. The Trepanation Blade, it could mill your opponent's cards, but you're never really attacking. It costs 3 to play, 2 to equip, so I don't see that card being played. Now, in this pack, cards I could have picked would be Moon Heron, Bonds of Faith, or or maybe the Cellar Door, Spectral Rod. I ended up taking the Isolated Chapel, thinking that I could splash black for the Witch, and plus it's a little bit of ticks. Yeah, I'm a little cheap. But, yeah, I took the Chapel trying to splash for Bitterheart Witch. Probably should have taken the Heron or the Bonds of Faith, but Bonds of Faith really needs to be a removal spell, not a pump spell in this deck. Here I see a Curse of the Tome, best card for me. You really can't get too many of that card. Here now I take Dream Twist. Now Dream Twist is a great card. Mills through the first time, mills through the second time. So if you're ever able to... It's really good for just really holding back werewolves, because you can play it twice in a turn to flip everything back. Now here I get another Dream Twist. Now there's a Cellar Door, which I probably don't want, and the Go Collar spell. I take the Dream Twist because it's the best card, but I really want to wheel that Go Collar spell. That bell can almost sometimes be a one-sided Howling Mine, in that I play so many cards with flashback, or at least there's a lot of cards for this archetype with flashback. So the Go Collar spell is a great turn 1 play. It really speeds up your clock. But Dream Twist is always a better top deck. You can't get too many Dream Twists. Well, I mean, you could have a million Dream Twists, but like, I draft 5 Dream Twists and play them in this particular deck. The card just speeds up your clock so much. Now in this pack I see Silent Departure, Forbidden Alchemy, and Witchbane Orb. I initially thought to hate the Witchbane Orb, but that's just wrong. Nobody's even going to pick that card up. Silent Departure, I wish it was an instant. If it was an instant, it would be amazing. The flashback is extremely hefty, so it's nice that you can kind of get it back later. I ended up taking Silent Departure. Forbidden Alchemy could have been a pick. I never actually drafted that in this particular archetype. Now, Feeling of Dread is actually one of the best cards this deck can get. If you mill it with your Go Collar spells, you just flash it back later. Basically being able to fog for 2 turns while you have like a Curse of the Tome and they're just getting decked is absurd. Feeling of Dread is one of the best cards in this deck, to be honest. Now, I think the Forbidden Alchemy, I've only drafted this actually archetype twice. Both times I did manage to make the top 2 of the finals of an 8-4. So I really think this archetype is very good. The only problem is if anybody else is drafting it, or there's just not enough mill cards, it's not going to work. But if you do get just an average mill deck, you have a very good chance of winning. The deck's just pretty impressive. There's so many cards at the common slot that just make this deck so viable. This pack really didn't have much of anything. I think I hate the Ferial Ridgewolf just because it's the best card against me. It can get pretty big, so I just hate down a Ridgewolf. This pack, the best card for me is Voiceless Spirit. This deck can actually have a hard time dealing with flyers, so besides just grabbing removal for flyers, the best thing to do is draft your own flyers, and Voiceless Spirit does really well at blocking other flyers. And then here's the Moon Heron that I probably should have picked initially. That was in my opening pack. 4 for 3/2 trades with just about any flyer in the format. This pack is pretty meh. I'll take the Village Cannibals. It's just the best card. Also, if for whatever reason I ended up getting a bunch of black cards, I guess I could play it, but most likely not. Another thing that's fairly interesting about this deck is most of the creatures that you play are humans, and humans are actually the hardest creatures in this format to remove. A lot of things kill zombies, werewolves, and vampires, so humans are pretty good. Now the Screeching Bat seems extremely late. I don't know why nobody picked it. I just picked it up in case, again, I was able to play black. A 2/2 flyer is actually pretty good, and the fact that it can flip, but this deck never, ever goes on the offensive in terms of attacking. So yeah, but then again, yeah, the creatures, you really want a lot of humans. I've noticed that most of the removal deals with non-humans. Now, I wield this Go Collar spell, which doesn't sound like a wheel, but it's definitely a wheel. That card is absurd in this deck. I roughly like 2 to 3, and then I got a Witchbane, whatever, the Orb, so I won't have to worry about my opponent citing that in, which was nice, actually.